On July of 2015, Katie Steinle spent a languid day with her father at Pier 14 off the San Francisco coast. She was a vibrant 32-year-old with all the promise of a successful career in medical sales. She had just recently moved in with a longtime boyfriend, and things looked to be a positive trajectory. However, all of that came to a tragic end with the ring of a single gunshot. Struck in the back with a single bullet, Kate cried out to her father, who rushed to her side. Struggling to voice her fear as she clung desperately to consciousness, her last words to her father were, "It's hard to breathe." Her father held her, powerless to render any comfort or assurance, till emergency personnel responded to initiate CPR. 2 hours later, Kate succumbed to her injuries at a local San Francisco hospital. This senseless tragedy was perpetrated by Mr. Jose Inez Garcia Zarata. Zarata was a felon with a long history of mental illness, but the true shock came when it was discovered that Mr. Zarata was in fact an illegal immigrant. Once more, Zarata had actually been removed from the U.S. on 5 separate occasions by immigration authorities. According to Mr. Zarata, he had rummaged through a trash barrel when he found a .40 caliber Sig Sauer among the debris. Upon finding the gun and picking it up, he lost hold of this pistol and dropping it to the ground, whereupon it discharged, ricocheted, and struck Kate Steinle nearly 90 feet away. The real tragedy of this crime is not the fact that there was a felon who came in possession of a gun under questionable circumstances leading to the death of an innocent young woman, but that this particular crime was 100% avoidable. Mr. Garcia Zarata, like many illegal immigrants, flocked to California under a new political promise made by its state and local municipal leaders. California, like a number of growing left-wing dominated legislators, began espousing a new outlook on federal immigration law enforcement. That outlook fostered disdain for federal immigration agencies and quickly became a rally for purposeful obstruction of its law enforcement duties. This obstruction and no compliance attitude was given name by its proponents, namely sanctuary policies. These policies explicitly prohibited local law enforcement from working with federal immigration agencies in any capacity as it related to the removal or issuance of court proceedings by said agencies. In practice, this meant that criminal aliens would be released back into population after serving county or state time without fear of removal to their countries of origin. This is exactly what happened to Mr. Garcia Zarata, who was consequently found guilty of possession of a handgun, but acquitted on manslaughter. The Steinle case highlights a growing trend of lawlessness and tragedy that surrounds the crisis of illegal immigration in our country. For example, as of June 2019, the Customs Borders Patrol places total illegal crossing apprehensions at 688,000 for 2019. Contrast that with 521,000 for 2018, or even so 415,000 for 2017. Monthly averages for this year have nearly doubled from the preceding years. So what are the root causes of illegal immigration? What are some of its effects on both citizens and migrants alike? And finally, what are some solutions to perhaps address the underlying incentives or drives that convince people that illegal immigration is a worthwhile venture? Some of the root causes to this issue can be found in perverse incentive structures created by badly crafted laws or by political actors looking to assure future power through pandering. The Steinle case is a quintessential example of political gamesmanship for the purpose of pandering to perceived future constituency. For all the talk we are given by sanctuary advocates that it is not politics, it seems to fly in the face of certain political realities that have taken place of late. In 2016, Governor Jerry Brown of California signed into law AB 60. This bill would allow for the issuance of state IDs to all residents of California, regardless of immigration status. Is it simply coincidence that California state law requires nothing more than a state form of identification in order to vote? Or that it has long been a standing policy to automatically register drivers for voting upon issuance of such licenses? These same policy and legal machinations are taking root in other predominant one-party ruled states like New York and Washington, D.C. It seems reasonable to assume that those advocates of sanctuary policy are simply students of history when it comes to this issue. We had Reagan, who eventually granted amnesty to illegals in the 1980s, and more recently Obama with DACA, where close to 1 million people could automatically receive residency or citizenship with full voting rights. Aside from the incentives to politicians to consolidate and ensure future power, there are a number of perverse incentives created as a direct consequence of badly crafted laws. One of these incentives is illustrated by the uptick of family units being apprehended at and between ports. The Flores Law has a lengthy lineage in its origination, but at its heart is a contention that minors who were being detained were being subjected to inhumane treatment. The criticism came in observation that often young people would be housed with adults and forced to use restrooms and showering facilities with older males. Recognizing the exposure to liability, the Clinton administration conceded to an agreement which allowed for more relaxed policies on holding minors. This agreement provided an opening for judicial advocacy in many sympathetic states, who then further burdened the immigration authorities by requiring them to release minors into the country after only 20 days. This effectively became known as the catch and release policy, which is one of the main vectors of immigration law that is a main area of exploitation for asylum claims. Whereas 2 years ago, family unit apprehensions were barely 10%, now that is up to nearly 50%. The issue was so prevailing that blood tests were introduced and administered to verify relations. Nearly 30% of those family units were proved to be frauds. This issue is a glaring reminder of another facet of criminal activity that allows illegal immigrants, namely human smuggling and specifically child trafficking, for the express purpose of evading federal immigration authorities. So what are the effects of these policies of both citizens and migrants in general, and who is best served by them? In New York Times, an article by Daniel Costa described nearly 30% of illegal laborers being paid under the minimum wage, and nearly 80% are not paid overtime for their work. This is an exploitation by American employers to illegal immigrants and foreign workers who come here illegally. Another exploiter is criminal syndicates like the Mexican cartel, who make billions through sex and human trafficking rings, and one of the more devastating consequences to illegal immigration is the growing advent of identity theft. Americans are often forced to pay tax liens on income and on earned fraudulent use of their social security numbers. So for solutions, I looked to a wonderful article from Real Clear Politics written by Rafael Benaroa in 2018. It follows Israel's policies on and its implication on and its application of practical security and policy measures to address not only long-standing terrorism issues along the West Bank, but also foreign workers from abroad who sought illegally entry into its borders. Israel built 3 separate high wall barricades along its west, north, and south border. Along the 290-mile West Bank border, a 25-foot concrete wall with surveillance and detection technology reduced fatal terrorist attacks by 80% within the first year. A 150-mile wall on Gaza, the southern border, equally equipped, reduced their 2011 illegal crossings rate of 17,000 down to 43 by 2013 and to 0 in 2017. This mirrors the results from El Paso, Texas, when they erected the first section of a border fence in the 1990s. El Paso saw a dramatic decrease in its crossings within that area. Another vector is remittance. Mexico received nearly $33 billion in remittance payments from nationals living within the United States. That accounts for nearly 2.7% of the country's total GDP. That's American currency that will not be circulated through the American economy, and as of today has no taxes associated with it. By looking to apply fees or taxes to the remittance while prescribing harsher penalization on employees who circumvent or fail to comply or verify rules, we could create another disincentivization for illegal laborers who seek to evade taxation on wages. In conclusion, it is a popular thing to say that America was built by immigrants, and in a real sense that is true. But America was founded on the principles outlined in the Constitution. The Constitution is a legal document. Social order cannot exist in the same space as lawlessness. The 5-cent piece has the U.S. motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. This saying denotes what is really at the heart of the meaningful immigration policy for me. A U.S. policy that stands for fundamental uniting principles upon which this country was founded. Equality under the law and God and freedom for its citizens. But citizenship means little if we ourselves do not uphold its ascribed value. That though we be from many different places and spring from many different peoples, we still hold these truths to be self-evident, and that we sustain and protect what this country truly represents, the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. Thank you.